Rizzo tool of countering extremism in British schools, The Truth About Birmingham Trojan Horse Affair 2018, and co-director with Dr. Layla El Jihad for the People's Review of Prevent. Can I welcome, first of all, John Holmwood to my program. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Apologies for a little bit of a delay in our communications. Basically, we had a few. We're broadcasting remotely these days, as you know, as everybody else is. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between my communication system and back in the studio. So apologies for that. Welcome to the show. And can I also welcome to the program Anas Mustafa from Cage. And I understand Cage has been discussed in the Parliament recently, and no other than the Home Secretary has mentioned Cage in various dispatches, etc. And also Ahmed Hussain from MPAC. So, John, can I start with yourself first of all? A little bit of a background. I think people Prevent might have basically gone under the radar a little bit from the headlines. Just a brief review of the purpose of Prevent, where it is now, in the sense that, you know, there was a period of time when Prevent was talked about because there's lots of activities which warranted that, and also then why the review and the review itself.
Well, Prevent is part of the government's counter-extremism strategy. It's not directed at counter-terrorism in the immediate sense. What it's directed at is ideas and behaviors that are some distance back, upstream, if you like, from terrorism activities itself. And so it's an intervention is what is called the pre-criminal space. That is, nobody who is caught up in Prevent review or consideration by Prevent has committed a criminal offence, nor have they formed an intention to do a criminal offence. What it is they're thought to have ideas that put them at risk of being vulnerable to radicalization. So it's important, and it's been going in some form since around 2003. And initially the focus of Prevent was directed towards communities, encouraging resilience and tackling what were thought to be extremist ideas within communities. And it was focused upon British Muslim communities, and therefore that made it look as if they were under particular suspicion, and in effect created a kind of scapegoating operation. So although if one says Prevent is about pre-crime, then we might think of something called pre-punishment, which is the stigma that communities are put under from being a special focus of Prevent. And also, as Prevent has evolved, and the most important aspect is the 2015 Prevent duty, which means that all public authorities have an obligation to monitor individuals. That's whether in schools, in health services, social work, for the signs of Prevent. So over 1 million people in public authorities are trained in Prevent to undertake that kind of surveillance. And of course, that means that it's not only then communities under suspicion, but particular individuals also come under suspicion, which involves some degree of investigation by counterterrorism forces, even though they have committed no offence. And they may be recommended to go on to a program of de-radicalisation called Channel, and only around 5 to 10% of those referred under Prevent are recommended for Channel. But once again, I emphasise, even those who go through the Channel programme have not committed an offence. So all of this is directed against ideas judged to be extreme, but nonetheless are lawful when they're expressed within the political sphere. So you wouldn't, if I expressed some of the ideas that are called extremist, I would just be judged to be exercising my right to free speech. But if the Prevent programme judges those ideas to be extremist, and some young person is picking up on them and repeats some of them, they may well be reported to Prevent by their school or by their or by a hospital service.
So I guess this has been around for quite some years, and I think quite rightly, I think there's been criticism of it because, like you said, it's trying to tackle a scenario which hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's actually prompted a review. And first of all, A, has it been successful? And B, why has it warranted a review?
Well, it warrants a review because, in fact, it is part of the whole framework of counter-terrorism, and counter-terrorism legislation itself is subject to annual review by an independent barrister who is empowered also to initiate reviews of different aspects of counter-terrorism legislation and its implementation. So we have annual reviews of that. There has been no review of Prevent. The independent reviewers of terrorism have said that there should be proper statutory-based reviews of Prevent, and the government has resisted doing that. And although parts of the counter-terrorism program come under the remit of the independent reviewer for terrorism legislation, the government has consistently kept Prevent out of that process of review. So the review is overdue, and indeed there have been United Nations rapporteurs commenting on human rights abuses and so on, who have indicated that there's a real threat to civil liberties by Prevent. And other NGOs, Muslim NGOs obviously, but not only Muslim NGOs, and indeed bodies which are quite close to the government's Prevent agenda itself. So the Commission for Countering Extremism, which is an advisory body within the Home Office and within Prevent, also recommended a few years ago that there should be a proper independent statutory review of Prevent. Significantly, the current review by William Shawcross does not have that kind of standing. It is not, he has no expertise in the area. He does not have, he's not legally qualified. He's not done any research in relation to Prevent. So he is, in a sense, a political appointment to deliver a set of recommendations. And it's significant that those recommendations have been immediately taken up by the government.
Right. Okay. So, Anas, if I can bring you in. So the recommendations, I think that they have been rejected broadly by a good section of the intelligentsia, I would say, perhaps, maybe. Why is that? Why has the recommendation and the review been rejected, in your view? You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I think the first reason, perhaps, is because of the reviewer himself. William Shawcross is, you can very lightly say, a highly divisive figure, someone with a track record of incendiary comments about Islam and Muslims that span back quite a number of years. His stint at the Charities Commission was marred by a focus on Muslim charities, designating them as extremist charities for essentially delivering aid work in Syria and in conflict zones. So he's a problematic figure to begin with, and generally most of the NGOs across the UK rejected his appointment as a reviewer from the onset. So therefore, whatever he produces, they would oppose it.
So, but I mean, can you say that though? Can you say that just because he's a controversial figure, his review has been less than impartial?
Yes, if his views are so strong about Islam and Muslims in a very Islamophobic sense, and reviewing a policy that primarily targets Muslims, then yes, one leads to the other. You can't separate the two, and that is seen exactly. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, really. So if you look at the review itself, much of its recommendations focus on encouraging the government or refocusing Prevent primarily on Muslim beliefs and what they term as Islamism. And if you look at what they describe as Islamism, is a range of beliefs and positions that generally most Muslims would appreciate are within the realm of, you know, normal discussed issues in Muslim circles. But however, they're seen with a lens of suspicion, and if anyone adopts these things, then they're essentially pretty much criminalized and targeted by the state. Prevent. Professor John Homewood, he did a very good explanation on the theory of Prevent. In practice, it's been a tool to crush dissent, and it's been a tool to control the debates that happen within Muslim circles, especially. And governments have come and gone, and they've weaponized Prevent against any group that they deem problematic. Or operate beyond what the pale of what they determine as the reasonable kind of political debate, and that's what's being used now. It's being and the review serves to give an opportunity to revive Prevent after it's been wholly condemned by the vast majority of civil society in the UK, and I guess that's why we need to push back against it and resist it.
Yeah, John, if I could bring you back in again, I guess from an academic perspective. Just because a controversial figure has been heading this, does that in itself discredit the review?
Not in itself. One would say within academic circles that there should be a declaration of interest, and also there should be some evidence that he has undertaken a balanced review. So I mentioned that lots of bodies have criticised Prevent, from inside Prevent, the Commission for Countering Extremism, from outside Prevent in terms of United Nations rapporteurs, from civil society organisations like Liberty and Amnesty, and then Muslim civil society organisations. So he doesn't address any of those criticisms, not one of them. And then the only criticisms he addresses are those by Muslim civil society organizations. And he describes those organizations just by virtue of them criticizing Prevent that they are promoting an extremist agenda, so that we have a situation in which Prevent is argued to be necessary to promote democracy, and there is a very focused and targeted attack upon Muslim civil society organizations and their participation in the public sphere. So there's no balance in the way in which he addresses the criticism, but he argues very strongly his recommendation, and it's been accepted by the Home Office, that there should be a registration and certification of appropriate Muslim civil society organizations for them to be in receipt of public funding and for them to be engaged with by other, local government or by national government. We're already aware that the government refuses to engage with the Muslim Council of Britain, extraordinarily, but it is now extending that and formalizing that that approach. And so I would say, well, there's no academic basis for that. He's a controversial figure, and he has done nothing to indicate that he either appreciates the nature of the criticism or is prepared to give argument and evidence against it. All he does is smear one section of his opponents. And of course, that's the best evidence of Islamophobia, is if the only critics of Prevent that you attack are the ones that happen to be Muslim civil society organizations, and you don't mention the others.
Indeed, and as if I can bring you in again. So I guess the focus for Prevent has and should have now diverted from Muslims to other organizations with far-right views, etc. Have they featured equally intensely in this report, or have they not been dealt with?
I mean, the entirety of the report is about downplaying risks from all other groups and focusing on Muslims. They want to kind of reframe the debate that way, identify Muslims as this standout exclusive group that has special risk factors associated with them that require a greater focus and attention from the state, security services, police, and so on. So essentially, the narrative coming out from the report is that we shouldn't fear the rise of the far right, fascists, and so on, marching down our streets and burning police cars, but we should fear the average Muslims and what they say in their mosques behind closed doors. So that's the narrative that's being pushed out. And I just a bit deeper. I mean, if Prevent itself is structurally flawed, then whether it's weaponized against Muslims or the extreme far right or whatever, those failures will be replicated across the board. So it's not really about having this kind of equal opportunities Prevent. It's about having a discussion about whether this kind of program is even worth having, and whether there are better approaches to resolve some of these kind of political grievances that exist, including, and part of that solution will include the state having to take some accountability for creating and fostering an environment that encourages hostility between communities.
Indeed. Ahmed, if I can bring you in, so presumably this is a position, this is not a new position, and I guess the Conservative government and the previous governments have taken this view, and Prevent has survived, I guess, successive governments. What is it that, from a Muslim community perspective, that we failed to do in order to sort of put across a counter narrative to what's been projected? The view that's held within powerful circles, basically within government.
So,
so your microphone, you're on mute. Sorry, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. So go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, let me put that question to John. And John, I guess.
Can you hear me?
The reason we are where we are is, I guess, that not enough thinking intellectual people have argued against the position that successive governments have taken, and few, I guess, people who've got influence and money, I guess, have managed to sort of put their views across in a better way.
Well, I think that obviously it's easy to mobilize a public concern about safety and the risks of terrorism. So one understands that. But if what you do is then scapegoat one particular community, that encourages the public to think that something is being done, even if what it is being done is actually dividing communities rather than bringing communities together. So if what you're doing is scapegoating a minority, then the majority, in a sense, sort of pauses in taking up on your behalf. And I think that that's been one of the failures. So I wouldn't call it a failure of the Muslim community. I would fail it a failure of the community of people who look like me. That is white, middle-class, liberal Britain that ought to be speaking out against this because it presents itself as representing liberal values. The problem is that group is predominantly secular and is unsympathetic to religious expression. So I think you're getting a complicated racial and religious combination in trying to defend in trying to push back against Prevent. But as Anna said, sitting in the background is the provision of applying this to others. So they don't wish to apply it to right-wing extremism, and they say, let's dial that down. they don't say very much about other kinds of extremism, except they leave the space for environmental activists, for anti-race activists to be targeted. And how they do that is because their definition of terrorism is extraordinary. Broad.
John and Anas, we're gonna have to leave it there. My producer's telling me I've run out of time. So thank you very much. I really have enjoyed this discussion. I'm sure we'll continue on another program. Anas, John, thank you very much. Listeners, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Anas, as well.
Plumbers merchant in the area, specializing in all types of plumbing and heating, as well as combination boilers and megaflow cylinders. Whether you need a new bathroom or a complete new heating system, LHS is the place. Come along to our brand new bathroom showroom at Unit 1, 3 Chorlend Lane, Luton, to see the latest range of quality bathrooms. Or log on to leegrave.net. We're an Interpart-approved stockist for all genuine spares. Our new store in Bedford is now also fully opened. Leegrave Heating Supplies. Call Luton 84 86 88.
After burying the deceased, Prophet, peace be upon him, would say, "Ask for forgiveness and firmness for your brother, because he is now being questioned." Abu Dawood 3221.
Attention all electricians, builders and DIY enthusiasts. Capital Electrical Wholesalers are now open in Luton. It's a fully stocked branch with experienced staff on hand to help with all your electrical needs. With branches also in Greenford, Tottenham, Richmond and Ashton. Capital Electrical Wholesalers only stock the biggest names, including JCC, Saxby, Knightsbridge, Hamilton, MK, Wilex, Hager, Aco Smoke Alarms and many more. That's Capital Electrical at Unit M, Kingsway Industrial Estate. Call 01582 801122.
For 30 years, we have been fighting to create a more caring, just and sustainable world, responding to emergencies all over the globe. For 3 decades, we have worked tirelessly. Yet while there is still poverty, social injustice and natural disasters in the world, our fight will continue. We are Human Appeal, and we're here for every human, whatever it takes. Donate today by visiting www.humanappeal.org.uk or call us on 0161 225 0225.
इस्लामी नुक्ता निगाह से इल्मी और फिक्री मौज़ूआत का जायजा, इस्लाम की इंसानियत साज़ तालीमात का ख्याल अफरोज़ तज़किरा, रवादारी और बक़ाए बाहमी क़ज़ामिन, फ़िक्र और नज़र की तत्हीर और अख़लाक़ी बालीदगी पर मबनी मौज़ूआत पर ताक़ीकी गुफ्तगू, वक्त, आलात और माहौल के तकाज़ों के मुताबिक समाजी इस्लाह क़ज़ामिन। सुनते रहिए और सवालात पूछिए। इंस्पायर FM पर प्रोग्राम सदाए तकदीर हर बुध दिन 11 बजे प्रोफेसर मसूद अख्तर हजारी के साथ।
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. You're listening to Friday Night Live. This is Inspire FM 105.1 FM. My name is Zafar Iqbal. And before the break, we were discussing the review of the PREVENT strategy. We had some expert guests describing what PREVENT is and also why the review is not seen to be impartial. Reasons were given by some expert guests we had from MPAC and from Cage and also University of Nottingham. So we're going to move on to a slightly different topic. Now we're going to do an update on the ongoing, relief effort within Turkey and Syria. We've got Ruzwan and Khalil from Human Appeal who are going to give us an update from, I assume, on the ground in Syria and also Turkey in terms of the relief effort and what they are doing to support the humanitarian effort that's going on there. I know last week when we tried to connect with them, there were some issues. I can understand the reasons why the connectivity in that region isn't great. I guess a lot of the infrastructure has been damaged, etc. So I'm hoping that they would be on today. Okay, I'm being told that we've still got some connectivity issues. So let's talk a little bit about what we discussed last week. We had a local brother discuss the aid effort and what a magnificent job, I guess, Luton and UK community is doing in terms of providing funding and also providing I guess relief supplies. And there's multiple hundreds of tons of stuff that was being sent over to support those who are victims of this earthquake, and also quite a few amounts of money. So I think there's about 70,000 was the figure that was suggested last week that was raised by the local community. We do have a connection with Brother Khalil. I understand Khalil is on the ground in Turkey. Is that right? Assalamu alaikum, Brother Khalil. Can you hear me? You're on mute if you're talking. Can you hear me?
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Zafar. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Yourself? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're just cutting off for the moment. I do apologize if I
can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think there might be some technology issues on both ends there.
I can now, yes. Can you?
You can, okay. So I'm just going to ask: Are you in Turkey or Syria? Whereabouts are you at the moment? We're still having some connectivity issues. Apologize. We're going to have to get our producers to try again.
Are you able to?
Yeah, we're going to have to get our guys to try again. Again, I understand very well that there are some bandwidth and I guess connectivity issues to that part of the world, obviously because the infrastructure is affected. So yes, we were talking to Brother Tila from the Turkish Community Center in Luton last week, and he's been coordinating the relief effort locally and within the UK, and he's been in touch with AFAD, the disaster management organization within Turkey, and he was talking about the marvelous, the fantastic response that the people have shown to this very very heart-wrenching disaster, where many families have been wiped out and lots of people have died. In the region of 34,000 was the latest figure that was mentioned, have perished in this earthquake, and many more are probably still yet to sort of be found, or the bodies yet to be found. However, there has been some good news. There have been some people being found alive after many days, and there's some heroic stories that have been coming out in social media as well as the traditional media. So may the efforts continue. May the people who are from around the world, from over 100 countries around the world, who are helping with the relief effort, maybe they'll continue to find survivors. That's the hope, inshallah, and we pray for them, and we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on the souls of the passed away, and those who have survived, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for them. We're going to move on to our next topic. Understandably, there are some technical issues. We're going to carry on with our discussion like we do every time I'm on the program. I have a deep interest, I guess, in what happens in Pakistan and the political turmoil that's going on, like every Pakistani who's an expat. And I have to say that the reading is and has been grim. The political sort of shenanigans have gone on and gotten worse. So I've got with me, like I normally do, is Major Retired Yasir Janjua. Assalamu alaikum, Janjua Sahab, Yasir Sahab.
Walaikum assalam.
Welcome to my show again.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so what's happened this week then? This week, the two major events that I am aware of is first, basically, well, three major events: the IMF negotiations and where they've gone, and price hikes, I guess, which are a continuing feature. An attempt made to arrest Imran Khan. So what's been the thing that caught your eyes this week in the headlines?
Well, all these events in Pakistan are very disturbing. There is no end to this political circus that is going on in Pakistan for the last 8-9 months. And now, unfortunately, it has gone to a level. For example, the most significant thing that we thought the Pakistanis, the ordinary Pakistanis, were thinking, that after the High Court judgment that the elections to the Punjab and KPK assemblies should be held within 90 days, as per the Constitution. So we were hoping that this will bring a change that we were hoping to see for a very long time. And keep in mind, the political parties, the opposition to the PTI, the PPP and the PMLN, their major leadership, the bigwigs, the first-tier leadership has been saying before this assemblies were dissolved that if PTI decides to dissolve the assemblies, the next day we'll dissolve the next National Assembly. When PTI did that, they backtracked. So Imran Khan found out that this is not going to be an easy fix. They went to the High Court. The High Court gave a decision which we thought would probably now instill some sense in these guys, and they will follow the court orders and the Constitution. And you've seen yet another round of dramas going on. That the governor has refused, the election commission has refused, and they're finding excuses not to hold the elections. I don't know what's going on. And at the same time, you were talking about IMF. Well, IMF has made very strict conditions and demands for giving another tranche of money to Pakistan, and they have connected it or linked it to additional taxes, 180 billion in taxes in electricity and gas and fuel price hikes, and the government wanted to implement them through a presidential ordinance. So the finance minister went to the president. Obviously, he's from the other party, so he went to the president to ask him to issue an ordinance so that they could fulfill the IMF demands and IMF could then release the money. So the president flatly refused. He said, no, I'm not going to take this burden of responsibility on my shoulders, whereby I'm going to be blamed for these taxes and the additional burden on the common masses. He asked him, and which was legitimate demand from the president to go and legislate the thing. He asked them to go and legislate in the National Assembly and the Senate and then come back, and it will be signed into a law. So, so there's complete drama everywhere in Pakistan, unfortunately, and it doesn't seem.
And the other thing I think is the conversations. The former chief of army staff has actually sort of coming to the fore as well. He's made some comments against Imran Khan. They have made headlines too. So what's your reading of them?
Well, traditionally speaking, the army chiefs, once they retire, no matter how controversial they were, they don't speak. And you've seen General Ashfaq Parvez Kiani just before Mr. Bajwa was General Raid Sharif, who actually went to Saudi Arabia for an assignment, but otherwise also he would have stayed quiet. So he has never been in the public Before him was Ashfaq Parvez Kiani. He drew some controversies because he got an extension while he was in uniform, but after he retired, he didn't open his words because the people in these positions, they have a lot of state secrets in their hearts.
Yeah.
So if they start opening up and they start speaking, it can create more confusion and chaos than settling the problem. So they don't speak at all. Though they have to have very deep tummies, to be honest, to bury the information in their tummies and never speak again. And most of them do like that. However, General Bajwa, this is, and to be honest, I must say, the journalist he chose for giving an interview, he might have a lot of fanfare following, but a lot of people know about the character of the guy. So I have no qualms in saying Javed Chaudhry is not the best man to leak out the information. Yes, he must have drawn a lot of followership because of that information that the interview that he did with the general, but he himself does not command a lot of respect. And General Bajwa saying all those things, half of them are half-cooked or half-baked. They're not as the other parties would think or say. He has lost that trust that nobody wants to believe him anymore. I, being a military man, unfortunately, I have no qualms in saying I'm not proud of this man. I'll be very honest with you.
And it looks like what's coming out is that what's been interpreted between the lines is admissions of his own failures, I guess, really, isn't it?
Well, and admission of a regime change that he says he was behind it because whatever reasons, he's admitted that. That's outright shameful.
And on top of that,
I as somebody who's been defending the military, I would have had good excuse to continue to defend his actions if he did not speak up. Now, what grounds do I have to defend him or the military when he himself is saying out in the open, yes, we did it? So how can somebody in a sane mind go out and defend him? That's very unfortunate, and that's why the army is drawing a lot of criticism in the public now, which never was the case before. Which is very shameful.
Indeed, especially the fact that when he left, before he left, he re-announced the policy that the army won't interfere in politics, and yet here we are, we're finding out that he was doing quite the opposite.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, what he says is the government went down because this time we did not support them, or we did not put a hand behind them for them to continue standing there. So either way, that means that that's an admission that yes, you've been doing that in the past. Even if you have been, the nature of the business is such in this world, what we call the intelligence world, nobody comes out and commits what they have done, So he should have thought twice before saying something which would jeopardize his successors' work and their credibility and the institution's credibility. That's the most important thing that has gone down.
Yeah, and I guess the message which everyone now believes is that interference in political circles is still going on, and that's probably what's behind the elections being delayed and announcement not being made. How much of it do you reckon it is the meddling of the armed forces, and how much of it is a political shenanigans?
To be honest, I don't think it's going on at the moment from the military side. They cannot afford to take any more of disgrace that has already come their way. So, anybody in the sane mind at the leadership level at this time would not want to get involved anymore after Mr. Bajwa has left a legacy of disgrace for us. Unfortunately,
I think that distinction. I think when people say that, they draw a distinction between the intelligence services and the army, right? And they talk on one hand about the army, and the army may not well be directly involved, but the intelligence services are. So, what is your belief? That is the intelligence services behind the political instability that's happening at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the current leadership, the army chief, the new army chief, is a very professional man, and he's keeping the new DGISPR. Have you ever seen him in a single press conference? It's now been almost more than 3 months now since the new army chief has been in chair and the new DGISPR has been there. I know both of them very well. I know the old DGISPR as well as this guy, the new one.
You can argue he's in hiding. You can argue he's in hiding because of the last battering the last DGISPR took.
No, it's not high. It's a policy. It's a policy at the institution level that they have decided to take a step back and not be at the forefront on media. So that's the reason. It's not the hiding. It's just that they're doing their own job and they're not getting involved in the civilian affairs. So there are two ways to think about it or to look at it. One way is what you're saying, but I know the fact from the insider information that there's a policy decision that the new DGISPR would not be holding press conferences and press briefs and blah, blah, blah. And that's been in effect because they wanted him to take a back seat in the last 2-3 terms of the DGISPRs, Babar Iftikhar and before him, Asif Kapoor and Asim Bajwa. These 3 DGISPRs made a lot of appearances in the public, you say so, and which has not been taken positively. Especially the last one, I'm sorry to say he's a very good friend of mine, but I hate to say this, some of his press conferences in the last few months after the ouster of the government didn't sit well with a lot of people.
No, they didn't sit well at all, to be honest. I think his performance was less than what would be expected. But just moving on a little bit.
I'm honestly going to tell you this thing. I'm not trying to defend him here, but what would you do if you were in his position and there's your boss who's giving you instructions, or you are supposed to take instructions on orders from him, unless you have the courage to say, sorry, I'm going to remove my uniform and go home. If you don't do that, you have to follow the orders. That's how the military works everywhere in the world. So that's why, if you think he did what he did, he was following the orders, which anybody would do.
And I guess what the other thing that came out this week was Imran Khan saying that it wasn't the Americans were courted into taking action against Pakistan by Bajwa. So he basically
I don't fully endorse that statement. Yes, Bajwa's intervention through America was there, but then Americans were on board to this idea. That's why what that letter that came from the ambassador as a result of that meeting with the Undersecretary of State in the US with the Pakistani ambassador, that wouldn't have happened. Okay, understood that probably Mr. Bajwa was there because Imran Khan's leaning towards Russia were not sitting well with the armed forces. And soon after he came back from Russia, General Bajwa gave a statement at a seminar in Islamabad, which was shocking. I was actually in that seminar, and I was surprised. What did he say? Because the Prime Minister has just come back from Russia, and he's going in a different direction than the Prime Minister. So basically, if Bajwa Saab tried to convince the Americans, now the thing is, if the Americans didn't want to meddle in the internal affairs of Pakistan, they would have told Bajwa, sorry, we are not going to take any blame onto us, so we are not going to get involved. But they did get involved. So whether Bajwa told them or... So I don't fully agree with Imran Khan to absolve the Americans now at this stage from the responsibility. Well, they were responsible. They did get involved, even if Bajwa asked them or whosoever asked them. So I
don't think there's any disagreement on that from the political circles, at least anyway. But having said that, so I said last week that whenever America has an interest in Afghanistan or that region, the first thing that goes is the elected government, right, and is replaced by a very friendly general. When can Pakistan look forward to a time when a general is not subservient to America?
I think that's the time. Hopefully, if as soon as possible, the elections, a free and fair election regime takes place in Pakistan as soon as, let's say, in this year, sometime this year, and a democratically elected government which is for example, for the next 5, 6 years, 10 years maybe, Pakistani democracy get a chance for Imran Khan to be in the reign with complete authority, I think he will change this attitude of us being dictated by the Americans. Imran Khan has done that in the last 3.5 years. So if he comes in, I think that's going to change, and that is changing otherwise.
And you think he'll have the authority and the generals would retire to the barracks?
Well, the Turkish model is in front of us. Nobody in Turkey thought that the Turkish army would take a back seat, but President Erdogan has made it sure that they've taken a back seat. So Imran Khan, when he comes without those clutches that he had in this previous government, where he had people who were blackmailing him from the other parties and even from within his party, because they knew that he's got a thin majority, so we can make sure we can blackmail him. So once he comes with a thumping majority this time, hopefully, if the elections are fair, then he will know that he's in command and in control, and then he will put everybody in the box where they belong, and that includes everybody. When I say everybody, it means everybody, and that's the need of the time and hour. And I think that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen.
So that's one scenario, and of course the other scenario is the Egypt model, right, where the army comes out and brutally crushes the movement.
Well, that's the model that Egypt and Pakistan have been following for the last 75 years. Let's be very honest. So Egyptian model is no different than Pakistani model. Well, Egypt has gone a step ahead in that direction where they have installed the army chief as the president. And that has been happening in Pakistan also when President Musharraf was there, or President Zia was there, or Field Marshal Ayub Khan was there. So that has been happening in Pakistan also. Incidentally, that will change. That no longer, Pakistan can no longer afford, the Pakistani military can no longer afford to continue doing these things, what they have been accused of doing in the past.
But that can only happen if the current setup, and whatever you say, the current setup is not strong enough without the support of the intelligence services. So there's obviously support from the intelligence services. So somebody's going to have to take a bitter pill and stand down to be able to move forward. And is the intelligence services going to back down?
As I said to you, the intelligence services do not operate in isolation, although technically speaking, the DGISI is subservient to the Prime Minister. He reports to the Prime Minister. But he's a serving general, and all his generals under him are serving generals and serving officers from the armed forces. So they take orders essentially from the army chief as well. So there's no doubt about it. There was a time before President Musharraf's time, just about the beginning of his time, when actually the ISI and MI were not even on talking terms, because the ISI was considered to the Prime Minister's arm. But that has changed since 2002, 3, and 4, whereby now the ISI is completely in control of the army chief. So I don't want to believe that at this particular moment, for the last 3 months, the ISI is involved. If at all it was in the past, it is just doing what it's supposed to do. So we hope that the elections are held and they're free and fair, and a new government comes in, and we will see the change that we want to see.
I think that's a very good point to stop at. Major Yasir Saab, Jazakallah khair, shukriya. Thank you for joining me again. Like previous occasions, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Listeners, this is it for today. Jazakallah khair for listening. Wherever you are, in Luton, in Birmingham, in Peterborough, in Derby. Hope you enjoyed the show. And hopefully you'll tune in next week to Hafiz Shaban, who will take on the reins as normal. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding area,